Chapter 1801, Defense and Counterattack. Emperor Indra never imagined that they would encounter their most formidable opponent just after arriving here. After the battle broke out over there, the situation that the mutants of Brahma encountered was even more dangerous than that of Zhang Yi and the others. Because in terms of group combat power, they were simply no match for the mutants under Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi and Gui engaged in a long battle, and he had to constantly guard against Gui using that ability again, which could blow open his dimensional gate. However, after using that ability, Zhang Yi clearly sensed that Gui's strength had weakened somewhat. Although it was not much, it was clearly noticeable in a battle between mutants of similar strength. Those red energy crystals are also the source of his own power. Interesting, I seem to understand something. The energy supply method of mechanical life forms is relatively simple, and as their energy is consumed, their combat effectiveness naturally weakens. Zhang Yi was in no hurry at all. After all, reinforcements were already in the distance to help him hold off the other mechanical army, so he could just enjoy himself here and have a good time with Gui. Gui's blade in his hand kept dancing, and the speed at which he swung it was so fast that it created countless afterimages. One after another, red, snake-like energy bodies kept attacking in the direction of Zhang Yi, but they were completely unable to have any effect. The space surge, that could shake open the dimensional gate, Zhang Yi would dodge it in advance after he had become prepared for it. He no longer engaged in head-on combat with Gui. Because he could dodge all of Gui's attacks, there was one move that Gui could never dodge. That was the Divine Realm Netherworld Cleansing. Gui's defenses were very strong, but Zhang Yi's killing move could block it once, twice, 3 times, but it was impossible to keep blocking it forever. The shield-breaking spear played a crucial role in this process. Once the defense field was broken, the only remaining defense he had was his mechanical body itself. In the other battlefield, Lucaran's Snow Owl played a huge role, and with the help of Liang Yu and the others, they had already destroyed 3 super-large mechanical life forms. The war had developed in a direction that was absolutely favorable for Zhang Yi. It's not that Gui is not strong enough, he has the most powerful combat system, both his attack and defense have reached a high level for a bishop level, and he even has a powerful killing move called Overload. If he were to face an average bishop-level mutant, he would definitely be able to pose a huge threat to his opponent. But the person he happened to encounter was Zhang Yi, someone who had pulled his defense to the maximum, someone who simply could not be killed. No matter how fast his sword was, or how powerful his energy cannon was, it was pointless if he could not hit his opponent. After more than 10 rounds of combat, Zhang Yi had basically figured out his style. The abilities the opponent possessed were not supernatural. He was just a battle robot that was ahead of its time. After figuring this out, Zhang Yi couldn't stop the smile on the corner of his mouth. As long as it wasn't a special ability user, he was naturally restrained by pure combat mutants or robots. Zhang Yi thrusts the divine refinement in his right hand into the ground. In an instant, a huge silver world tree is born in midair, with countless silver vines entwining in midair before spreading out and wrapping around Gui. Seeing this, Gui swung his curved sword violently. A terrifying red wave swept towards them, like a tsunami stretching for tens of kilometers, instantly shredding the vines. His attack power should not be underestimated. The vines of divine refinement are extremely resilient, but they could not stop his sword. Zhang Yi remained calm and continued to change the bullets. Shield-breaking spear launched an attack on Gui, while the gun in the other hand was already loaded with nuclear bullets. This was a difficult battle. Gui tried many methods, but was unable to break through Zhang Yi's everything under heaven. At this point, he finally realized that the opponent possessed not only the ability of the attribute of space, but also the spatial ability. Otherwise, why could the opponent accurately predict his every move before he could make a move, and then Gui-eyed whether to counterattack or flee? If not, his ultimate move would definitely be able to deal a heavy blow to Zhang Yi. The target possesses the special abilities of time and space. My chances of defeating the target with my combat power are 1.23%, and my chances of killing the target are 0.0032%. The source's central processing unit was running at top speed, but it ultimately arrived at such a sad result. As a guardian mechanical lifeform, his combat power was not the strongest. The other guardian mechanical lifeforms he had summoned were being held back. The source was almost overheating, and the system could not provide him with the best option at this time, because no matter what he did, it would be difficult to win at this time, and protect the engineering unit as it continued to work on the land. Escape? That was not an option for him, because that would directly mean mission failure and the end of the project. In this situation, there is a word in human culture to describe it: no choice but to fight to the death. Zhang Yi's attacks did not pause for a moment, and the next moment, 2 shield-breaking spears were shot at Gui. The anti-defense barrier broke through Gui's defense barrier, creating a loophole, and then the attack with no weak points, Divine Realm Netherworld Cleansing, followed. Under the barrage of attacks, even the hard body made of special materials finally showed signs of cracking. Kacha. Its dark metal torso made a sound as if it had been forcefully twisted, and continuous extrinsic force extrusion finally caused it to deform. Gui realized that something was wrong, and he finally unleashed a second attack using the burning energy crystal. A red energy wave surged out from the center of his sword, wildly surging in all directions. It swept the ground, destroying everything in its path. Zhang Yi did not choose to void world escape this time, because Gui's attack was no longer directed at him, but at the battlefield dozens of kilometers away. If Zhang Yi had avoided this time, the Mechanical Legions and Volt Shadow Troop in the battlefield would have all suffered an indiscriminate attack. Gui was certain that Zhang Yi would definitely come to the rescue of his partner, so he used this tactic. Good tactic. Zhang Yi's left eye, the second hand of time, reversed for 3 seconds, anticipating the opponent's movements, and he already had a plan in mind. So when Gui planned to burn the energy crystal and unleash a powerful attack, he preemptively launched a continuous barrage of attacks against him. The barrage of bullets shot towards Gui at 10 times the previous density. The shield-breaking spear mixed in with the barrage forced Gui to use the blade in his hand to defend against the bullets. The barrage of bullets continued like a flood. In the short span of a few minutes of combat, Zhang Yi had shot hundreds of thousands of bullets, completely recklessly. The advantage of this was that he was able to retain his own state to the greatest extent possible. And influenced by Zhang Yi in this way, Gui's attack rhythm also became chaotic. Zhang Yi had already made up his mind that he would never again give Gui the opportunity to launch that kind of attack. So when the cooldown of Divine Realm Netherworld Cleansing ended, he changed his attack method. Divine Realm Netherworld Cleansing, Zhang Yi's powerful finishing move, which he mastered after gaining a certain level of control over the power of space. It focuses on an area and creates a huge spatial collapse within a spherical area. This move was created after he reached Black Chariot level power and gained a deeper understanding of the power of space. Now that he has reached Bishop level power, Zhang Yi has even more precise control over the power of space. Therefore, his attacks are even more precise. The second hand of time predicted Gui's actions and determined his position. Then, the power of the void in his right eye twisted, and amidst the chaos of light and shadow, the target area in his line of sight also began to distort strongly. The sword in Gui's hand was swinging rapidly, too fast for the naked eye to distinguish, but Zhang Yi accurately captured its movements. A powerful force arose at his wrist, and the power of Divine Realm Netherworld Cleansing focused on that point on Gui's wrist before suddenly exerting itself. The entire spherical space instantly collapsed, and the bishop-level power at the spatial node of his wrist instantly exploded. Click! The sound of mechanical distortion came, and Gui's wrist was twisted like a twist, rotating more than 200 degrees as a whole. The strange curved sword he was holding in his hand also fell out of his palm and fell towards the ground. The sudden changes that had taken place left Gui dumbfounded. His arm made mechanical clicking sounds as it twisted, and the joints in his twisted palm were rapidly repairing. But a short moment was already enough time for Zhang Yi to do a lot. For the first time, he used the space shuffle to get close to Gui. Time Swamp activated. Gui felt as if his body had fallen into a swamp, and his movements were greatly slowed. His left hand, which had reached out to grab the blade, was too slow and could only watch as it disappeared into midair and into a blind world of nothingness. Gui's blade had been successfully captured by Zhang Yi. This weapon was also one of Gui's sources of power, and losing it would greatly affect him. However, Zhang Yi did not let his guard down, because there were definitely other red energy crystals hidden on his body. So it is possible that he may continue to erupt with skills that exceed normal combat power at any time. Zhang Yi raised the divine refinement in his hand, aimed at the body of Gui, and fired a star-piercing cannon straight at him. The power erupted up close, so fast that even Gui had difficulty defending against it. His weapon was lost, and he could only rely on the huge scorpion tail behind him to defend against Zhang Yi's attack. The scorpion tail extended tens of meters, wrapping around Gui's body, while a defensive force field opened in front of him. Boom! The dark star-piercing cannon fired directly at the defensive force field, but this time, under the fierce impact, the defensive force field actually began to show cracks. Crack! The defensive force field shattered, and the remaining power impacted on the defensive layer formed by the scorpion tail, sending Gui flying. Zhang Yi verified his guess. As expected, losing that weapon has greatly reduced his power. Liu Karen had already come up with an answer to the question of what a defensive force field was through her research on superlarge mechanical life forms. Essentially, it is a shield formed using energy, and it works on the same principle as the mutant's supernatural shields. However, its structure is more scientific, and it can maximize defense with minimal force. This is the principle behind the shield-breaking spear, which attacks it and affects the structure of its force field, making it no longer stable and thus appear to have a flaw. And after the power that maintains the defensive force field gyreases, it is no longer so indestructible. Zhang Yi, armed with dual guns, chased after Gui and killed him. Taking advantage of the gap in its power at this time, he didn't give it the slightest chance. In the three battlefields, the fighting was in full swing at this time. Zhang Yi was completely dominating the battle against Gui at this point. Although its power had been reduced, its toughness was still sufficient. Even though its body had been damaged, its fighting spirit had not been affected in the slightest. After all, as long as the mechanical lifeform source was not destroyed, it could not be killed. Zhang Yi had plenty of patience to engage in a drawn-out battle with it. He was in no hurry to destroy it, but instead used the same method as when he was boiling the hawk, gradually wearing down its fighting power. The power of Gui has been greatly weakened and he is no longer able to effectively attack Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi's target is focused on Gui's scorpion tail, as there are still more than 10 red energy crystals embedded in it. Using the same method again, Gui is indeed unable to resist. After repeating the attack dozens of times, Zhang Yi slashes off Gui's scorpion tail. At this point, Gui was no longer a threat to Zhang Yi. None of his attacks could even break through Zhang Yi's everything under heaven. But even at this point, he was still fighting, trying every means possible to defeat Zhang Yi. Unfortunately, he was not human, otherwise Zhang Yi would definitely have persuaded him to surrender. However, the android probably did not have the concept of surrender, and would only follow the established procedures to execute orders. No choice, then I'll have to destroy you first. Zhang Yi no longer held back, and his attacks became even more ferocious. Without his weapon, Gui was quickly beaten to pieces. In the end, all 4 limbs were broken, and even most of the torso was destroyed, before it finally stopped moving completely. Just as Zhang Yi was about to recycle his body, the second hand of time made a dangerous omen. His remaining half-body had unexpectedly begun the self-destruct sequence. Zhang Yi knew that its energy core must also be maintained by a powerful energy source. But seeing that he was about to successfully capture a demon god, how could Zhang Yi allow his efforts to come to naught? 3 seconds was enough time for him to do many things, such as throwing the half-body, which had no resistance, directly into a different dimension. Once inside, the flow of time was greatly slowed, and all movements seemed like slow motion in a movie. Even if the demon god wanted to self-destruct, it would be difficult to achieve. Zhang Yi quickly disassembled his body in dimensional space and found the energy source located at the position of his skull. It was a red sphere, completely different from the super-large mechanical lifeforms or mass production machines. It gave off an eerie glow, and one could sense that it existed for a special reason. Zhang Yi thought about it for a while and guided to put it in dimensional space for now, and study it properly when he got back.